Okay, last talk of the conference is going to be Nathan Williams, and he's going to speak on the charmed roots and the Kroweras complement.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. All right, this has been an amazing FPSAC, so please stay after so we can thank everyone. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. It's always an honor. Last time I gave a talk at FPSAC, it was 2019, and I was pretending to be Vic Reiner, and shortly after the universe punished us all with a global pandemic. This year, if you check the schedule a little earlier, you'll notice that I'm pretending to be Hugh Thomas. So I can only recommend that after the ice cream social, you stock up on essential goods. Okay, so I was hired for this project as the marketing consultant. They told me to write an introduction to the paper. And so at some point, I was about halfway through writing the intro, I decided to check out what the paper was about. And that's what I'm here to tell you today. Okay, so this is joint work with Benjamin, Gabriel, Alessandro, Florian, and Hugh. Everyone's here except Gabe, or was here. If you have any questions, you should probably ask them. Okay, one thing. I've been told that sometimes I go a little fast, and so I made a lot of things in this presentation interactive. There we go. And this is the old adage that a JavaScript animation of a bijection is worth 1,000 words. If I'm going too fast, if I'm unclear, you can just load it up and click on it, kind of like this, click on some things. But not on your phone. This is the CrowdStrike of slide decks for phones. So doing an interactive presentation is a little bit iffy. The last time this happened at FPSAC, I think it was Zach Hamaker, and Lescu yelled at him. So here we go. All right. You remember that? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna try to introduce you to two worlds: non-nesting and non-crossing. Okay, so for a root system, we have this definition of a positive root poset, and if you don't know the definition, don't really worry about it. You can hover things, and it'll tell you some information. Not over here because I didn't bother to code it. So the running example is basically a triangle, but in type B you'd have a trapezoid, and you can even have more exotic things like this picture that I stole from Ringle for F4. Nice picture. Okay, a few things to notice. There are rank many simple roots at the bottom of the picture, okay? And then at the top, there's a unique highest root, and that has rank h-1, where h is the Coxeter number. And then, this is kind of magical, the exponents can be, for the root system, can be defined in this kind of really simple way. It's just the dual partition of the rank sizes. Okay, so you write down the number of roots of each rank, and then you just think of that as a partition and take the dual partition. And so, for example, if you do this in type A, it doesn't really change anything because the ranks are just 1 up to n or n down to 1. But in type B, for example, you get the odd numbers because all the rank sizes are repeated twice. And in F4, you get 1, 5, 7, and 11, really quite magical numbers. This way of defining the exponents has a pretty funny history. So it was found by Arnold Shapiro, rather by accident. So that is, Shapiro misinterpreted a faulty and erroneous way that Bott had devised for computing the exponents. So by misinterpreting it, he came up with a correct way of doing it. You can read about this in Costin's paper here. Okay, so great. So we can now talk about non-nesting. So I think we're all familiar with the famous story about how Gauss's elementary school teacher, as a punishment, asked the class to sum up the exponents for a 100. And what Gauss noticed was that if you add EI and E rank plus 1 minus I, then you always get the Coxeter number H. Okay, so then you do the usual thing, yeah? You write the sum twice, the second time backwards, and add down the rank many R columns. And so by definition, as a dual partition, the sum of the exponents is the number of roots, that's n, and so twice n is equal to the rank times h. In one stroke, Gauss not only got 50-50, but he also got that the sum of the first n odd numbers is actually a perfect square, and also he proved that 1 plus 5 plus 7 plus 11 is 24. But I want you to note that the 24 on the right-hand side was obtained without adding the numbers that appear on the left-hand side. Okay, so now let's talk about the non-crossing side. So there's another way to compute exponents using the eigenvalues of the Coxeter element. Let me tell you about how to get Gauss's identity that twice n is the rank times h from the Coxeter elements. Okay, so a standard Coxeter element is just a product of the simple reflections in some order, and in type A they have a really simple description. They're just long cycles that start at 1, okay, then they increase for a bit, and then they go back down after they hit n, okay? And so what's important here is that all Coxeter elements are actually conjugate in a sort of nice way. It's using initial and final conjugation. So I have a picture here for you. And so what this is this is a way to encode the Coxeter element as a quiver. So as Hugh Thomas likes to point out, a quiver is just a directed graph with pretensions. So here, what's happening here is vertex I is representing the simple reflection Si, and I will point to I plus 1 if Si appears before Si plus 1 in the word. So when I click, I'm allowed to click on either initial or final guys, and that just conjugates. So it moves it from the beginning to the end and so on. So you can, merrily dance your way across whatever. Okay, so unless there are bugs, then you can't do it. Okay, and what's happening here on the slides is that you can see the reduced word and the cycle notation. Okay. Wonderful. So the point is that if I put sort of h of these quivers, so c to the h next to each other, which is just the word c to the h, this is somehow the same as putting like 2 copies of the positive roots next to each other. So if you know about the braid group and Nathan reading c sorting words, and the statement is that c to the h is equal to the c sorting word of w naught times the c tilde sorting word of w naught, where c tilde is conjugating by w naught, whatever. Okay, so if you just look at the number of letters, though, what's happening is on the right-hand side, you have, c to the h, so that's r times h many letters, rank times h, and on the left-hand side you have twice the number of positive roots, and so twice n is equal to r times h, all right? Okay, but since we have many choices for c, okay, well, actually we get the Gauss identity in many, many different ways. Okay, all of these are sort of different proofs of Gauss's identity, if you're willing to believe various fancy Coxeter theoretic facts. Okay, so, and here, as before, I'm keeping track of reduced word and cycle notation. And if you like, if when you hover, you can see the root. So like, for example, because there's a 2 up here, this is the cycle notation written on top and on bottom, and you can figure out what root it is by just looking to the right and then down. So this is like 2, 6, okay? That makes some sense. All right, wonderful. Okay, and so looking at like the first half of this picture would be something like, if you threw some extra arrows on, would be like the Ausländer-Reiten quiver, if you like. Okay, so that was the warm-up to the 2 worlds of non-crossing and non-nesting. Okay, good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to decorate these 2 pictures. Okay, one is this positive root poset, and the other one is this c to the h thing. Okay, so let's just decorate them. So the first one's sort of easy. It's just non-nesting partitions. So these are just anti-chains, or if you like, order ideals in the root poset. And in type A, the point is that the anti-chain condition is just non-nesting of the corresponding arcs, right? So you can see the arcs. We can draw more if you like, or whatever. I don't know. There, we can remove some too. Cool. Okay. Okay. As you can see, great. So the amazing thing here is that this is defined, in any type, and so there's this amazing product formula, just in terms of the W Catalan number, just the Catalan number. So it's expressed using the exponents, our old friends, the Coxeter number. Here's the rank and the degree, if you like, just exponents plus 1. Okay. And here's the relevant part of Vic's paper, where he's crediting Postnikov, and he's basically looking at the she arrangement. And I didn't put the title here because I don't want to confuse you. Okay. All right. I'll do it later. Okay. So in type A, you get the usual Catalan numbers. Obviously, you can see like it's stick paths or whatever. In type B, you get the central binomial coefficients, and in type F4, the Catalan number is of course just 105. It's a Catalan number. Okay, so now let's talk about non-crossing partitions. Okay, so we all know non-crossing partitions in type A. Here are the papers that I'm crediting. It's beautiful, beautiful papers of Vic and David Bassis. And for symmetry of the talk, I'm going to give a slightly different definition using that sort of doubled picture, the C to the H picture that I had before. So excuse me. So you're just collections of sort of R reflections inside of this sequence, the inversion sequence of C to the H, that product to C. And so you get the usual non-crossing partitions under a Coxeter element in the absolute order, but if you just take the product of those reflections in the first copy. Okay, the second copy is interesting though too. So this doesn't matter so much for what I want to tell you. In type A, it's just set partitions that when drawn in the cycle notation around a circle of the Coxeter elements, then you just have non-crossing blocks. So here you can see that it doesn't really matter which Coxeter element I'm taking for the combinatorics of the thing, because they're all conjugate. So, but whatever, the labelings are changing is the point, right? Good. Okay, so that's non-crossing partitions. All right, so now non-nesting and non-crossing partitions. So they're rather different beasts. And so the big open problem in Catalan combinatorics, I'd say, is to show that non-crossing and non-nesting partitions are somehow the same in a type uniform way. So here's the relevant part of Drew Armstrong's thesis with that problem. Okay, so non-crossing equals non-nesting is the last open problem in Catalan combinatorics, and what you'll notice here is that I've put a couple question marks next to last and next to open. So the first question mark is because Hugh reminded me that evil is never truly defeated, and the second question mark is I'll tell you in a moment. Anyway, so there's sort of a standard bijection that sort of everyone writes down when you're trying to go. So here's the anti-chain, and you just sort of pair off parentheses or something. And when you do this, you get a bijection. So I can just read this as like 1 now maps to 9, and 2 maps to 7, and 3 maps to 4. And so I've converted this non-nesting condition into this non-crossing condition in this way. And as a little foreshadowing, there's a heart. Okay, all right, so there was a question mark on open. Why is there a question mark on open? So the problem is that Drew Armstrong, Christian Stumpf, and Hugh Thomas kind of solved the problem of finding uniform bijection between non-crossing and non-nesting partitions. Here's the paper. The only issue is they don't actually give you the bijection. So that is, what do I mean? So what I mean is that they show the bijection exists and is unique up to some properties, but they don't actually give it to you. Okay, so here's a very abbreviated history with apologies to everyone that I've left off. And the point of the paper that I'm here selling you today, that I'm marketing, is that we're actually handing you the bijection in type A for any Coxeter element. Okay, so how do you come up with such a thing? Well, the trick is that non-crossing and non-nesting have some rather big differences. So the first is that the non-crossing partition requires a choice of Coxeter elements, even though this doesn't actually change the combinatorics. As we saw, it doesn't really change the combinatorics, but it still requires this choice. It's a little weird. And so let's call that map alpha. That moves you between C and C conjugated by S, where S is some initial thing. Okay, so that's one sort of difference. The second difference is that the non-crossing partitions have this Kroweras complement, where that's basically like looking, instead of just at the first part, you look at the second part of the C to the H, the two W naughts that were sitting there. And the non-nesting partitions are just defined on the root poset, so there is no sort of second copy. So it doesn't obviously have something that's like a Kroweras complement, but we'll come back to that in just a second. So this sort of alpha thing that takes you between a Coxeter element and a different Coxeter element and the Kroweras complement, they're compatible in the sense that this square is commutative. So I'd like the same things sort of for the non-nesting side. I'd like to have a beta that takes me between non-nesting and non-nestings, and then I'd also like to have some sort of strange map, some sort of Kroweras complement. Okay, and actually better than that, what I'd really like is I'd like a bijection, a sort of charmed bijection between non-nesting and non-crossing partitions that sort of respects everything. So that this cube is actually supposed to be commutative. Okay, right. So now, so the marketing, so the Kroweras complement. How'd you do it, Mike? Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, so I have to explain where this comes from. Okay, so non-nesting partitions under the Panyushev complement, whatever this is, they have the same, it has the same order as non-crossing partitions under the Kroweras complement. So this was noticed by Panyushev. The Panyushev complement has sometimes been called by some authors row motion. In this paper, sort of motivated by some old observations with Hugh and Christian, we have a modified version of row motion with toggles in the order coming from the inversions of this C to the H word, let's say. So it's this kind of a row motion that's combined with the Kroweras complement, which I guess most naturally would be called the Kroweras complement. Okay, so I don't really want to say more about that. But the Kroweras complement, it will toggle. It's some sequence of toggles, and there's some compatible beta map which you can compute in the toggle group. And so what I really want to do is tell you about these charmed bijections that sort of make the entire cube commutative, not just the top or bottom face or anything like that. Yes. Okay. So you remember the usual bijection. So the usual bijection was sort of like this, and you converted this into a non-crossing thing. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to add some hearts. So let's add, I don't know, let's add one here and there. And so what's going to happen is, what's going to happen is, as you draw these paths, the hearts that sort of get exposed that aren't below a non-heart will sort of disappear, and they'll get forgotten, except if they're in a valley of a path. Those guys will stick around. And that's sort of the big difference. So let's just see how this goes. So what I'm saying is that heart will stay, but these guys will go away in the first iteration of this. There we go, okay? And that one, and this heart right here stays because it's below some non-hearts. All right, so this is basically the extent of it, and then the whole point is you can easily play with it, and you'll see the rules. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so in fact, this is a bunch of bijections, and it's too general. It's too many bijections. Since you have any possible choice for the hearts that you want, you can put hearts anywhere, and that's too much. So instead, we want to have hearts coming from the Coxeter elements. So for the Coxeter element C, the sort of charmed roots, the hearts, where are they coming from? They're coming from the cycle notation of C. So the cycle notation for C, you recall, it starts at 1, it increases for a while, it gets to n, and then it decreases. And so what you kind of want is you want roots, ij, where the I or the j come from one of the parts, and then the other one comes from the other part. Okay, so in terms of the picture here, what you're seeing is that, so let me just conjugate this a little bit, and what you'll see is that the hearts are appearing sort of in this rectangle that's cut out by sort of the increasing bit and then the decreasing bit. Okay, does that make sense? Well, whatever. All right, so it's a little fast. That's why I have the slides. Okay, so the point is, that's the result. So this is very much in the style of Armstrong, Stump, and Thomas, except that we actually give you the bijections, and we work with any Coxeter elements in type A. And so to end, well, here's a picture, and you can fiddle with it, because a JavaScript animation of a bijection is indeed worth 1,000 words. And so there you go. You can play with this guy, and then just one quick word on the proof. So basically, it's using the fact that all of the Coxeter elements are conjugate, and so once you know it for sort of one Coxeter element, that would be sort of this left-hand commutative part of the square. Then what you do is you want to prove it for this side, and the way you prove it for this right-hand side of the square is commutative is you sort of go the very long way around the other side of the cube, and in doing so, you then just sort of put these cubes next to each other and walk your way around to any Coxeter elements. Okay, and okay, so thank you. I'll take questions, and then we'll have some announcements before the ice cream, please.
Questions?
So this is for type A only?
Only type A.
And any ideas for B, say?
Yes, this would be awesome. We do type B by folding. I have other questions planted for you if you like.
What's the Q analog?
Ah, there you go. Well, I guess that's sort of the correspondence between affine Springer fibers and braid varieties. Yeah, it is.
So for some choice of data, is it the same as the Armstrong Thomas bijection and row motion?
No, I don't believe so. Yeah, in fact, so one funny thing is that if you make everything hearts, then it actually just takes you, that's not actually one of the C charmed bijections, but if you make everything hearts, then that actually just, that takes you from non-nesting to non-nesting. But no, I don't think it's actually the same, yeah, for any choice. Because we can do the bipartite Coxeter element, but the inversion sequence gives you a completely different way to toggle.
Other questions?
Okay, so I guess then, oh, there's a question.
Thanks for the really cool talk. Does anything interesting happen if you, say, choose some of these hearts randomly and run this a few times? And see what
like
happens?
probabilistic something? Yeah. I have no idea. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. So I guess we need to do some thank yous for this truly amazing FPSAC. So let's see. There we go. So I guess Christian Stumpf, big round of applause for Christian.
Okay. I was going to say the program committee first. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess I'm gonna keep going until Christian cuts. Okay. So thanks to everyone for coming and making this such a wonderful week. So that's all of you. So. Okay, some more thank yous. Let's see. Yes, we have to thank the program and organizing committees for all their work behind the scenes.
Wait a minute. Let's ask. Can people who are on the program committee and who are still here, can I ask you to stand up? There's some of you who are still here. Brendan in the back was the chair, and of the one of the co-chairs. There were two others. One other one came. Other people on the committee. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Okay, and of course we have to thank all the Christians. Credit to Knutson for that one. And then, okay.
Can I ask everyone on the organizing committee to come down and come onto the stage, please? Organizing committee. Yes. Organizing committee, can I ask you to come down? Student assistants, everybody.
So let's thank again the local organizing committee, and in particular Annika Schulte, who probably has been in contact with all of you at some point in the last weeks and months. It has been really great to work with you. It wouldn't have been possible without all the help we got over the last weeks, and especially during this week. Thank you all for coming. I hope we're going to see you next year, all in Japan. Thanks a lot. And actually, Ice Cream Social is going to be outside now.
So there's at least one more announcement. This committee in particular seems really small for the amazing job that they did. Like it was really an impressive conference. And I think from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. This conference is so much work. It is really hard to put on, but we need volunteers. So I'm going to say it's a lot of work, but we're looking for people who want to say, yes, come to my university, come to my hometown, and say, we're going to host a beautiful conference like this. If you are interested in doing this, there is a link on the FPSAC2024 website, and it gives you some instructions about kind of what's involved in organizing. Get in contact with us, and if you can, fill out that form and say, hey, we would like to host, and bring it to our university. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
No, but there's ice cream outside.
Ice cream outside.
Tons of ice cream outside.
Yay. Thank you.